There is a ton of Unreal content that I want to give you guys, but I've been agonizing a little bit about where to start. It seemed to me the best place was to start talking about ways to bring in performances by actors into Unreal and how best to do this. So first I'd like to touch on a few of the methods by which this is done. Some of them you will be aware of and some of them maybe you won't. I have tried all of these in some respect in my living room. Then I'm going to touch on the method that I actually choose to use, and I really can't move into Unreal without discussing how to prepare your footage for bringing it in using my method. So generally speaking, there are three ways of integrating Unreal and your live action performances. The first and probably the most well-known is to use an LED volume or back projection. Now, an LED volume, of course, is the large LED screens that they use in The Mandalorian. This has been discussed at some length everywhere. So that would mean placing your actors in front of the LED screens, which display your Unreal Engine scene, and shooting it live there and then in camera. Doing it this way can be expensive, and not everyone, me included, has anywhere near access to this kind of technology. So with that said, the alternative is to use back projection. That has the advantage of being a lot more accessible using a projector or even a very large television, depending on what you're doing, and projecting or displaying your Unreal scene on that screen. I used back projection on a recent short film called A Stitch in Time, in which I recreated my living room in Unreal and back projected it while filming in my living room. Regarding that short film, I am really hoping that it gets into straight 8 this year, but who knows, it may not. But it was a big experiment of using Unreal Engine and Super 8 footage, so regardless of whether it gets into straight 8, which was what it was made for, you will be seeing it on this channel in the future. So the second method, and a very popular one at that, is to use a green screen. Now, Unreal has the ability to have you shoot on a green screen with your camera and pipe the footage directly into the engine and key it right there and place your actor in the scene. That's perfect, right? Well, if you're like me, you're a little picky about green screen. Anyone who's been on the channel long enough will know that I'm not the biggest fan. Basically, Unreal's green screen keying isn't up to snuff for my money. The edges are a bit too sharp and there's really no way of feathering at all. So it's mainly used for online events, and it does very well at that, but it's just not for cinema, personal opinion. Which brings me to the third method. Now, my method sometimes involves a green screen, but it's not reliant on a green screen. I'm actually using Rotobrush 2 and rotoscoping my footage, which you might think is overkill. Every shot roto, really? Yes. Rotobrush 2 is it's an amazing tool, and when I shoot on a green screen, as well as knowing that I'm going to roto, it means anything that needs to be cleaned up afterwards, I've got the ability to key and roto. So I'm going to show you this in a moment. For me, I feel one of the benefits of doing it this way, by bringing in your image plate and placing it right in the scene, is that it will, first of all, inherit a bunch of the lighting from your scene. So wherever you've placed lights, your image plate, your actor, will take on the color from the surrounding lights, the color temperature, and the placement of these lights integrates them better into the scene, in my opinion. It also means that when you actually want to finally export your shot, that it will also inherit all the post-processing. And I like the idea that it's all coming out of the same engine, which means that the image texture will be consistent. So any grain, any depth of field, and any color grading that you've done in Engine is applied across the whole image. And again, just brings it all together that bit more. So over the next few videos, this is the issue I'm going to be tackling, bringing in footage into Unreal Engine. But first, let's dive over to After Effects and I'll show you exactly how I prepare the footage for use in the engine. Let's go now. So here we are in After Effects. This shot is one that we did a few weeks back, and we've already managed to do what I'm about to show you, but I'm going to work from scratch so you can see how this footage has been prepared. Now, a few things to note. You'll notice first of all that this green screen is very poorly lit, as I've mentioned, we're actually going to be rotoscoping this piece of footage, and the green is actually just a way of separating foreground from background. Now obviously if you're going to do this, the best thing to do is make sure that your background is a color that isn't present in your foreground, so green is a good choice for me as opposed to blue, which would have been a nightmare. The rotoscoping is really only looking for contrasted edges, and it also, because it's Rotobrush 2, it is AI assisted, which means that it's been trained by AI models and machine learning to look for edges, which is excellent, and it does a very good job. So let me first of all mention as well, this piece of footage was filmed on the Panasonic S1H, and that has a Vlog profile which you wouldn't want to use for green screen. I have had comments about this, and I want to make sure you understand. I don't shoot in Vlog. You have to convert to RGB if you're going to do any keying. Now additionally, if you're going to use your footage in Unreal Engine, Unreal's color space is ACES, which is Academy Color Science. So you need to convert your footage to ACES before bringing it into After Effects. Premiere Pro does a good job of doing this. It has a color conversion tool in 2021, and now we're in After Effects. So I'm going to get a new comp from this selection, this piece of footage. So all that's happening in this clip is just me on the phone typing away. Now you of course need to have an idea of where you're placing your talent when you bring them into the engine. So my character, the one I'm playing here, is going to be sat in a car. So I've used two projectors, one that you can see on screen here and another one which is off to the left. And those are dynamically projecting light from the engine onto my face. That's a setup that I do cover in a previous video about green screen, which I'll link above. But it's pretty straightforward to do, and I will touch on it in a future video, and perhaps more in depth if that's something you guys want. Pop a comment below if that's something you're interested in, and I'll try and do that in the future. So let's do some rotoscoping then. So this shot is in my sequence, in my timeline. Double click on your footage and it'll be brought up in a layer just here, you can see there. And that means that we can go over to the Rotobrush tool, click on that, and now we can draw an outline around your talent. It doesn't have to be very precise, rough will do, although I will say this, to make sure you're on your first frame of your footage when you're doing this, for a start. You'll notice I am. And also, the better work that you do on your first frame, the better your result overall. Bang! Really nice. So this has done a really good job. I mean, there's really nothing that I can see there that I want to actually tweak, but just for the sake of showing you what you can and can't do with Rotobrush, when it's on the plus sign, you're able to click and include areas. So if I wanted to include more hair here, I'll just paint a bit more there, and you'll see it starts to include that there. However, I don't really want that because it looks terrible. So we're going to click and we're going to press and hold Alt and drag back over that area there because I don't want to include that. And it updates, and that's as simple as that. And you would do that for as much or as little of the shot as you want. So all you need to do from here is actually just press space. And what it will do is it will start propagating the frames afterwards. So you can see the green bar at the bottom of the footage, just down here, starts ticking upwards. And it's playing through the clip, but it's also updating the edge around me. Now that it's done, let's take a look at the Refine Edge tool, which I love personally. We'll go again back to the first frame, select the Refine Edge tool from the top, and then I'm not going to do the whole image, I'm just going to go around the hair. You can go around the whole edge. It might take a bit longer, but ultimately I'm just doing this for demonstrational purposes. I do tend to go around the entire edge, but this will demonstrate what it does with hair. So first of all, I'm going to zoom in way too far. Let's have a little look here. Get the Refine Edge tool, make sure you're in the layer again, as I mentioned before, and that you're on the first frame. If you press and hold Control and then click with the left mouse button, and drag up and down, you can change the size of the brush. We don't want something too big, but that probably will do. So let me just draw around what can only be described as the Beatles haircut that I had going on. There we go, right around the edge. I'm being more precise with this than I was with the other one. You just got to make sure that you get all of the hair and the edge in. It's okay to bleed over into the background because, as you can see, what it's done, it almost looks like an X-ray where it goes all the way around wherever you've painted, and that is going to look really good once finished. For instance, if you want to see how your matte looks, there are these tools. You've got Alpha Tool, Alpha Boundary, and Overlay. So let's have a look at these. So this one shows you the matte as white on black. Now this is a great way of seeing exactly what it's done with the hair, because it's perfectly feathered. Individual hairs are visible here. So what do we do now that this is done? We've propagated the edge, we've feathered around the hair, we've refined our edge, and this is the final step, and that's to press the freeze button, and that will essentially bake in all of these changes into this shot. Rather than wait for that to complete, I made one earlier. So on the screen here, this is the completed shot. This is the version I mentioned previously where I did feather and refine the entire edge. So it's me on an alpha background, exactly what we wanted. So let's have a quick look. This is all frozen. The line at the bottom is entirely blue, so we know that all of these is freezing. You can unfreeze at any given moment, but I won't do that because it will have to repropagate and you'll have to refreeze once you've made your changes. So what you'll notice about it here on black is that there is an edge of sorts around the coat, and it's probably some of the green spill from the green screen. It's understandable that we would get some of that. So what we would do next, and what I have done, what I can show you, is the cleanup that I did in the composition. My composition is 1024 by 1024. And that's because Unreal likes textures to the power of 2. Simple, I don't know why, but if Unreal likes it, then that's what we're going to do. So that's why it's square. You can bring in other sizes, but I do understand that the performance is slightly better with power of 2, and you can have larger textures than that, but 1024 by 1024 seemed perfectly feasible for what I was hoping to achieve with this shot. So this is of course the rotoed shot, and up here I also have applied some extra effect to mitigate against the edge that we saw earlier. So just to demonstrate that, I'm going to pop a solid down, make it black, place it underneath, and there's the edge that we had there. I'll retoggle these effects, add key light, which makes the edge slightly more subtle, spill suppressor, which does even more, and refine soft matte, which is my all-time favorite effect, and my edge is gone. Simple as that. Get rid of the black solid. This is now ready for exporting, and what you've got to understand is that Unreal doesn't treat all kinds of footage equally. It doesn't handle video files very well, but it does handle image sequences very well. So what we are going to do is export this as an EXR image sequence. So you should now be able to see that I'm going to select the open EXR sequence as my output. Zip compression is fine. PIS I think is also fine. Zip should work no problem. And you also want to make sure you've selected RGB plus alpha, which of course is going to do exactly what we're trying to do, which is just our actor or talent on a transparent background. This format, EXR, is pre-multiplied beforehand, so you shouldn't have any weird fringing or black edge or anything when you bring it into Unreal. It should just work. Click OK to that. If you already have an Unreal project that you want to bring this into, go into the project, go into the content folder and navigate to movies. Your videos are only going to work in the movies folder. That's just the way it is. So as you can see, I've already got a few in here. This shot was just shot 1, but you could literally just create a new folder, call it what you want, and then save out your images into there. I'm going to call this test. There we go. And save and render. It'll say output color depth exceeds project color depth. Click OK. And your images are processing, ready for use in Unreal. So thanks for joining me on this video. Now that we've prepared this footage, in the next video we'll be placing that into our Unreal scene. I'll show you how that can be played back in the engine and placed where you need it. And once again, it's really heartening to see so many of you in the comments. Please like and subscribe to this channel, and I will see you next time.